Hello, everyone. My name is Heidi White, and I am the Group Fitness and Wellness Manager at JCC Greater Boston. And it's such an honor to have Sally Duplantier here tonight speaking on better aging at any age. And one of many reasons why having Sally here is so special is that it was last December, it's almost our 1 year anniversary, when we learned about Sally's amazing online Wellness Wednesday speaker series, which we've been sharing with our JCC community ever since. So thank you, Sally, for being here, for your incredible work, and for helping to foster this wonderful collaboration, which we so deeply appreciate.
Oh, Heidi. Well, thank you. And thanks to everyone who is here. I will formally introduce myself in a second. Let me make sure everybody can see my slides. Can everybody see that?
We can see it.
All right. Sounds great. Well, I am delighted to be here. A brief introduction. I am Sally Duplantier. A lot of people trip over that name. It's French. I married a French guy. What can I say? I am a gerontologist and a researcher. So I study the science of aging. And in 2019, after retiring twice, I founded my current company, Zing. And I started this with a mission to help older adults live their best life longer. As Heidi mentioned, I am the host of Wellness Wednesdays. Now we have chat activated. Go ahead and type in the chat, yes or no. Have you ever attended one of my Wellness Wednesday programs? I'm just very curious. Oh, and I don't know, Heidi, can everybody see everybody else's chat, or maybe we can just see each other's? Okay, so a no, I see. Somebody said no,
Yeah.
no. Well,
Yeah, participants can't see
again,
each
yeah, there's
other's
somebody who
chats,
said
but we
yes.
have a few.
Yeah. All right, great. Well, these are evidence-based programs on healthy aging. I host them once a month. We still have one more left in December. I'm actually the guest speaker, and so Heidi's going to send you a link to that. In terms of my education, I have a certificate in nutrition science from Stanford. I have a Master of Science in Gerontology from USC, and I just completed a graduate certificate in qualitative research at Indiana U. I will add that I got all of that education after age 66. And in fact, when I got my MS in gerontology, I was the only kid in my graduating class who was also on Medicare. So never too old, right? I am currently doing research and looking at the ways that sleep, stress, movement, and nutrition impact healthy aging. So that is a little bit of a professional introduction. On a personal note, you probably can't tell just by looking at me, but I am the mom of a 4-year-old. And I thought you guys might want to see a picture of her. Are you ready? There she is. This is Bella. And it's probably good that I'm showing you her picture now because she's here and she may bark at some point during our presentation. So here's what we're going to cover between now and 7 p.m. We're going to be talking about cellular aging, and that's a term we throw around a lot, but I want to explain what is it. And then we're going to talk about lifestyle choices and even our attitude about aging and learn how those help slow down the cellular aging process. And then I really want to make this practical for all of you. So we'll end by talking about practical steps you can take to slow down cellular aging. Now, there is a lot of content in tonight's presentation, and there is a handout, and Heidi's going to be sending that. But I just want to let you know that I'm going to be introducing you to experiments, little things that you might try to improve or slow down cellular aging, no matter what age you are today. And my hope is that by the end of today's program, you'll be able to just identify one experiment you might want to try. So I will be talking probably for about maybe 35, 40 minutes, and then we're going to stop and open this up for Q&A. So there's a Q&A button in Zoom, and feel free as we go to type questions, and then Heidi and I will go through those at the end. Okay, so let's just start with some definitions. There's a difference between chronological age and biological age. And you know what? I can't help you with chronological age because chronological age is the age that you are on your passport. That's based on the year that you were born. But there is something else that we've been studying as researchers, and it's called biological age. And it's the age of our cells. And it really reflects our real age depending on how the aging process has affected us. So in this group, we might all be 71 years in terms of chronological age, but we might have very different biological ages. Cellular aging, the rate at which our cells age, affects this kind of aging, biological aging. Now, wouldn't it be wonderful if I could simply offer you youth in a pill? And I am sure there are companies that are doing that or trying to do that. So it's not quite that simple, but I think we actually have a lot more control over this than we might think. And so, what my research is focused on are these four pillars of health, four kind of pillars of lifestyle choices: stress, nutrition, exercise, sleep. And we're going to explore the role that they have in improving cellular aging. And I've been giving this talk for about 5 years, and I've added for tonight's presentation a new piece of research that I think is really important. And it's research related to our attitudes about aging, because you're going to see that how we think about ourselves as we get older plays a key role in how we age as well. So I promised to define cellular aging. Here's a definition. It is a progressive decline in a healthy cell that eventually results in cell death. And you can kind of see the difference here: healthy cell, here, unhealthy cell. And this process is constantly happening to the cells in our body. Now, how do we know that? Well, we talk a lot about biomarkers of cellular aging, and there's probably 100, if not 200 biomarkers. We only have an hour tonight. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but I'm going to talk about three. Three that you may have heard of or you might be a little bit familiar with. The first is something called telomeres. The second is systemic inflammation, sometimes called chronic inflammation or chronic low-level inflammation. And the third is oxidative stress. So what are these? How are they associated with cellular aging? Let's look at telomeres first. So telomeres are the end caps on our chromosomes, and they are what keeps cells thriving and dividing. And telomeres have a direct impact on how we age at a cellular level. So here in my diagram, you can see the little telomeres. Now, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember when I read this book, probably 5 years ago. I read this book by Elizabeth Blackburn and Alyssa Epel on the telomere effect. And I thought it was pretty profound. So Dr. Blackburn and her team won the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2009 for their work on telomeres. And then Dr. Blackburn teamed up with Dr. Epel, who's basically a psychologist out of UCSF. And what they did was they wrote a book, very easy read, called The Telomere Effect. And the book demonstrates the science behind how we can slow down aging at a cellular level, in particular with the effect on telomeres. So here's an example. Telomeres are a little bit like the end caps on a pair of shoelaces. And I don't know if I can even keep using that explanation because everybody's using slip-on shoes, but I think we all in this group remember shoelaces. And the shoelace is pretty good until that end, if that end cap falls off, it all gets kind of frayed. And, usually we end up throwing away the shoelaces and getting a new pair. And so telomeres have that same kind of protective role. They keep cells thriving and dividing. In the process of this, telomeres actually shorten. So they actually shorten until they don't exist anymore. And that's when the cell's kind of done for. They're all going to shorten. Like we can't stop the aging process, but what we want to do is prevent premature shortening. And lifestyle choices play a big role in that. So that's telomeres. So they're one biomarker of cellular aging. But now let's look at systemic inflammation. Systemic inflammation has to do with the immune response. I say the immune response gone awry. The immune response is constantly defending the body against invaders. It's healing acute wounds, injuries. But what happens with systemic inflammation is this ongoing low-level, low-grade inflammation that's generally associated with aging. It's part of the aging process. And interestingly enough, the World Health Organization has defined systemic inflammation as the most significant cause of death in the world. And you might be thinking, well, wait, I don't know anybody who died of systemic inflammation, but it's because systemic inflammation is linked to every chronic disease, cancer, arthritis, Alzheimer's, and other forms of dementia, neurological diseases like Parkinson's, autoimmune disorders, cardiovascular disease, pulmonary, and even type 2 diabetes. So systemic inflammation is an underlying cause of all of these diseases. Not the only cause, but a contributing cause. So let me try to explain this a little bit more clearly. As I said, that systemic inflammation is like good inflammation gone awry. And the good inflammation that we have in our bodies is something called acute. Acute immune response is really good. It's an immune response that helps repair injured tissue or fight disease. But the systemic inflammation is like inflammation gone awry, too much of a good thing. So let's say that you sprain your ankle. Let's say it could happen to any of us. We're standing at a curb, we kind of twist our ankle, we fall off the curb, and now we've got, let's say, a bad sprain. The reason that you see the swelling, the bruising, there's probably heat, soreness, redness, that's the immune system doing its job. That's actually a good sign that the body is healing itself. With this low-grade systemic inflammation, you don't really see anything. It's not like there's something that we can see to know it's happening. If you were part of a clinical trial in a research lab, we could measure it, but for the most part, like we don't even realize it's happening. Let me give you an example of how this happens. So in the acute inflammatory process, let's go back to that sprained ankle. You have different white blood cells. There's 17 in the body. And they kind of float around. They actually kind of hang out around the stomach, believe it or not. And when you sprain that ankle, there's a call for help. So one of the very vigilant immune white blood cells says, help, help. And then there's a promotion process where the other immune cells mount a defense. Then there's a restoration process where there's healing of that acute injury. And then there's resolution, where the immune cells don't hang out anymore around your ankle. They just kind of go back to where they were hanging out. But in systemic inflammation, here's what happens. They never go away. There is no resolution. And so what's happening now is that your body is in this constant inflammatory state. And here's a metaphor that I like to think about. So pretend you wanted to fix your house. Pretend your house is in really bad repair and you need to fix it. And somehow, magically, all of your contractors show up, let's say the same week, and they magically restore your house. Okay? So now the house looks good. And now you're really happy because the house is fixed. But the next morning, you go down to your kitchen for breakfast, and the contractors are still there. And they're hanging out in the afternoon. They're there for dinner. They're there again for breakfast. They never leave. And so that's an example of systemic inflammation where the body is being overly vigilant and it's in a constant inflammatory state, and there's no resolution. Okay. The next one is oxidative stress. You may have heard of this one, and one of the best examples I can give you is a visual, like a banana, a piece of fruit that's kind of past its prime. Another example would be rust. So what you're seeing here with the banana and what you see with rust is called oxidative stress. So here's an example of how oxidative stress works. I'm moving from the banana to a tomato because I had a visual of that. So, fresh tomato, tomato past its prime, tomato well past its prime. You can see the result of that. What's happening on a cellular level within your body is that there's a normal, healthy cell that's attacked by something called free radicals. I'll explain that in a second. So the cell itself is attacked, and now you have a cell with oxidative stress. And, it's similar to that kind of bad tomato. Now, you've probably heard about free radicals and antioxidants. So what are those? So uh, free radicals refer to a cell at the atomic level. And it's an atom within your body that has actually lost an electron. It becomes unstable. And so that's what leads to cellular damage. And if you have a lot of free radicals, you're going to have a lot more cellular damage. What antioxidants do is they are atoms that can actually donate an electron without becoming unstable themselves. So you hear about antioxidants in food, eat this, eat that. It has antioxidants. What does that mean? What that means is that now you're helping to counteract the free radicals that are in your body. And free radicals, it happens in part just because of aging and breathing. So, we age, we breathe, it's going to happen. Okay. So I've explained these as if they're kind of islands, but they are interrelated. So when you have oxidative stress, it will shorten telomeres. And if you have damaged telomeres and you have oxidative stress in your body, guess what? It's going to increase systemic inflammation. And in turn, systemic inflammation is also going to shorten telomeres. So unfortunately, when these things start working, they start working together. So that's why I think this is a really good question. I've been a little bit of the voice of doom and gloom so far. So I think it's logical to ask, can we change the rate of cellular aging? Remember earlier I said we can't stop it, but can we slow it down? And that's good news, because otherwise we'd have a pretty short presentation. The good news is yes. So what factors affect the rate of change for cellular aging? Well, genetics will play a role, and chronic disease, heart disease, COPD, diabetes play a role. But an even kind of bigger role in slowing down cellular aging is lifestyle choices. And specifically, I'm talking about these four. And the reason that lifestyle choices become so important is that they can influence our genetics. You know, our genes are not our destiny. You may have heard of something called epigenetics or gene expression. Lifestyle choices that we make, changes to these things, can influence how genes are expressed, which genes are turned on and turned off. Likewise, lifestyle choices reduce the risk of chronic disease and can prevent or even reverse certain chronic diseases. So even if you have, some bad genes in your family, or you already have some chronic disease like heart disease, it's not a life sentence. There are still things you can do to slow down cellular aging. So I'm going to start with stress because in the literature that I've read, in the Blackburn and Apple research and the scientific papers I've read, there is just such an overwhelming, compelling link between stress and cellular aging. So let's talk about that. So there's two kinds of stress. There's acute stress and chronic stress. Like acute stress dates back, I don't know, 2 million years ago. It's when we lived in the wild and we hunted, but we hunted animals, but we also could be the hunted. Acute stress is that fight or flight response if we are being chased by a wild animal. It's an adaptive response. It's a good response because it kept us safe. And the thing with acute stress is there's a period of acute stress, but then it goes away. But chronic stress is very different. And I thought I could define chronic stress, but I'm going to have you guys go to the chat again. What's chronic stress? What might be a chronic stressor in your life? I'm going to give you a minute to think about that and then just type something in the chat because usually we have them. Somebody said many. I don't know if everyone can read these. I think maybe just Heidi and I. Somebody said Trump. Yes, the current politics, death of a loved one. Yeah, what else? Politics. Yeah. Having a disabled child. Absolutely. Children in general. Yeah, these are all good. It could be a sick relative, a chronic illness. It could be finances, and it could be all of those. Yeah, being widowed. Yeah. So these things weigh on us. Money. Yeah, they're all chronic stressors. And our body's response to chronic stress is different than to acute stress. So let's take a look at that. Our response to chronic stress is maladaptive. Okay? Acute stress is adaptive. It was a good thing. Chronic stress is maladaptive. There is a high correlation between chronic stress and chronic disease. Pretty much every kind of chronic disease that you can think of, diabetes, heart disease, bone disease, respiratory disorders. Chronic stress increases cortisol in the bloodstream. Cortisol is considered the stress hormone, and the excess cortisol actually contributes to more free radicals and oxidative stress. So that's not good. Chronic stress increases inflammatory activity and it decreases telomere length. So again, it's not the acute stress, it's this maladaptive chronic stress. If that's not enough, chronic stress can actually lead to weight gain around the middle. I have a whole talk on why that happens. So here's how this works. The stress response, whether it's acute or chronic, is controlled by the autonomic nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system actually has two parts. It has the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is activated. It's like the fight or flight response. It's that when you see that tiger, you run. Parasympathetic is rest and digest. It's kind of a reset. And what our body needs to do is it needs to readjust this. So our body is pretty good in acute stress of modulating this. You know, we see that tiger, we run, we're safe, we take a deep breath. The challenge is that with chronic stress, you're kind of in the state like this, where your sympathetic nervous system is hyper aware, hyper awakened. And we might manually, through different exercises or activities, need to try to reset the balance. So that's what I'm going to show you. We're going to start with 3 experiments, and I'm going to be giving you 9 total. But think about, if one of these is something you might want to do, I'm going to give you some different experiments to try to kind of reset that parasympathetic nervous system. And then I'll be asking you in chat, what did you feel and what did you think? Okay, so here is my first experiment. I call it Take a Mindful Minute. A mindful minute is 1 minute of relaxed breathing. You've probably heard about breath work, the importance of breath work, meditation, etc. You know what? Just a minute is going to make a difference. So I hope you do this along with me. What I'd like you to do is close your eyes. I'm closing mine now too. And I want you to sit in a comfortable position. If you're in a chair where your feet touch the ground, go ahead and put both feet on the ground. Get comfortable. You can put your hands on your lap, maybe palms up, palms down. Palms down's a little bit more restorative. And then what I want you to do is start paying attention to your breath. The inhale and the exhale. And the inhale and the exhale. And then start to listen to the sounds in whatever room you're in. Just notice what you hear. And if your mind begins to wander, that's okay. Just return to the breath. The inhale and the exhale. And then gently open your eyes. And when you're ready, go to the chat and just tell me how you feel right now. Heidi, you can play along too if you want. Tell me how you feel. Relaxed. Who else? Calm. Anyone else? Relaxed. Different. Somebody said different. Oh, somebody said no different. That's fine. No different is fine. We only did this for about 45 seconds. It's funny because I can even, my own energy level, I can dial it down a little bit. So this is one experiment you can try. You might try it, if you're in traffic. I don't recommend closing your eyes. You might try it before a meal. You might try it, before a meeting. Just throughout the day, your breath is very, very powerful, and it can be a great way to reset the autonomic nervous system. All right, here's my next one. I call it modify your mood with music. So music is a very powerful way to either down-regulate the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, or up-regulate it. And we're going to try a couple examples. I'm going to be clicking on these, and a screen's going to display that might kind of give the answer away. So I'm going to ask you to just close your eyes again, and I just want you to listen, and then we'll do the same thing. I'm going to ask you how you feel. So close your eyes and then go ahead and listen. We'll play this for about 30 seconds. Go to the chat. That was 15 seconds. Any response to that music? Wow, okay. Somebody said it made me more alert. You didn't find it to be relaxing. Somebody said jarring. Somebody said happy. Okay, so these are really interesting responses. So what that was it was a Bach sonata, and classical music will typically downregulate the autonomic nervous system because the cadence of it is the same as the resting heartbeat. So a lot of people use classic music to kind of downregulate. I hear it's good for plants as well, but I don't know about that science. Okay, so now we're going to do this one more time. I'm going to play a different sample. I'm going to have you close your eyes and just listen, and then you can tell me how it feels, how you feel. Hang on, got to resume my screen sharing here.
It might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here, you can take a break. I'm a hot air balloon that could go to space. With the air, like I don't care, baby, by the way. Because I'm happy. Clap along.
All right, I love that. Okay, how do you feel about that? I love whoever said good for cleaning house. Yeah, it gets you going. Somebody like that, good. Yeah, it makes me want, whoever said it makes me want to dance. I want to dance too. I was kind of dancing in my chair. Yeah. So I mean, you can see the power of it. Now, obviously, it's important, exhilarating. Thank you. It's important to choose music you like. I mean, make your own playlist. But it also, the music, it's not just like, something you're listening to and it's kind of fun. It also has the ability to either downregulate or upregulate the autonomic nervous system. Again, depending on what works for you. Okay. Here's my third experiment in this section on stress. I call it Take a Joy Break. And this is based on a wonderful book by a wonderful health psychologist, Kelly McGonigal. She's out of Stanford. And she wrote a book called The Joy of Movement. And what her research shows is how movement lifts our moods, improves our spirit, reduces stress, in addition to all the other physical benefits. And so I kind of hijacked the joy of movement. I called it a joy break because one of the things I became aware of in my own work is how sedentary I am. I'm a gerontologist. I work from home. I can be heads down just sitting at my computer. And I think that's true for a lot of us. I also found that Bella can be pretty sedentary too. Like she just would, I work and she lays there. So I've invented a new command for Bella. I can't say it too loud or she'll jump up and start barking, but I go, Bella, Bella, joy break, Bella. And that's our cue. Mom gets up out of her chair, Bella gets out of her poof, and we go into our backyard. And our backyard is fun because we overlook a canyon and we kind of call that Animal Planet. But we don't do a lot. It's not like we plant flowers or garden or do anything really out there. We simply get up out of our chairs, we go outside, and we walk around for a little bit. So that's a joy break. So think about, maybe is there a way you could introduce a joy break into your day? Maybe go outside, maybe just get up, stretch your legs, walk around, do something. Okay, let's look at nutrition. So nutrition is a topic near and dear to my heart. Back in 2021, I co-authored a paper on the link between diet and cognitive decline. And I worked with an amazing professor out of Stanford, Christopher Gardner. Some of you might know him. Recognize his name. And so while our paper was really looking at factors related to neuroprotection, like brain health, what we discovered was that what's good for the brain is good for the heart. It's good for diabetes control, in part because the diets that we studied reduce the risk of all the cellular aging biomarkers that we discussed. So we looked primarily at two diets. We looked at Mediterranean, which has been around for, gosh, decades. It's the diet of the Mediterranean people. And it became a lot more popular, gosh, even in the last 10 years. And then the Mind diet was a diet that was developed out of Rush Medical Center in Chicago in 2015. And it's pretty much like the Mediterranean diet, but it emphasizes leafy greens and berries. And so what is it about these diets that are so healthy? Why did they help reduce the risk of brain, cognitive decline, but then these other biomarkers of cellular aging? So these diets are high in polyphenols. Polyphenols are plant-based compounds that have protective health benefits. Polyphenols are in fruits and vegetables, but they're in nuts, they're in seeds, they're in legumes, and they're in grains, whole grains. And polyphenols are powerful antioxidants. So antioxidants, remember, they lend an electron. And in the process of doing this, they not only counteract oxidative stress, but they reduce systemic inflammation and telomere attrition. So Mediterranean diet, very, very healthy and very powerful. These diets are also high in omega-3 fatty acids. And omega-3 fatty acids are a good type of fat that reduce oxidative stress and systemic inflammation. And new research shows that, emerging research, that they appear to reduce telomere attrition. So if you like fish, I encourage you to eat one serving of it a week. And the fish that's going to be the highest in omega-3 fatty acids would be something like tuna or salmon or even sardines. But more than that, it's not just what good foods are included, but it's the foods that we avoid. So the Mediterranean diet is low in sugar and saturated fat. We get plenty of that in our processed foods. And so added sugar, saturated fat, which is the kind of fat that's solid at room temperature, like butter, they will accelerate oxidative stress, inflammation, and telomere attrition. So some simple experiments. And remember, I'm giving you a lot of things you can pick from. I'm not asking you to try all of these. I'm hoping at the end to summarize and you pick one. But start with something simple. Oh, wow, could I get one more serving of a vegetable or fruit during the week? Or maybe I'll try fish. Maybe I'll have one serving of salmon, tuna, or sardines. Or maybe you start substituting. Like if you love butter, Could you love olive oil, at least for cooking, for example? So those are some experiments that you could try on the nutrition side. Oh, Heidi, this is interesting. I have a black slide. I think I have a note about it. Let me read this. It appears that since I've been talking this evening, a pill has been developed. Now, what I'm seeing about this pill, look at all these things the pill is going to do. It's going to reduce chronic inflammation, keep your heart healthy, improve your learning, lower blood pressure, help you stay calm under pressure, improve memory, fight malignancy, fight infection, and even regulate appetite and control body weight. And in a moment, I'm going to ask all of you who are on this call tonight if you would take this pill. But before I do, I want to let you know that this pill is free and there's no side effects. So here's my question. Go ahead and type in the chat. Would you take the pill? Yes or no?
Sign me up, Sally.
I got one big yes. Somebody said, yes, we like to exercise. Okay, I'm getting a lot of yeses. Somebody said no, not uncommon. I usually get some no's. Oh, somebody wants two. All right. Well, the good news is that the pill is here. It's sleep. And you know, exercise probably does the same thing. But this list is based from a wonderful book, kind of a life-changing book for me called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. He's out of UC Berkeley. He heads up the sleep division there. And so sleep has all these proven benefits. And in fact, every species sleeps. I find this fascinating. Even the lowly earthworm sleeps. So while every species sleeps, only humans avoid sleep to do something else. Oh, one more email, or I'm in the middle of a movie or a TV show, or, oh, I just need to look at my iPhone once more to find out what happened. Whatever it is, whatever reasons, we as humans avoid sleep. Bella will never miss sleep. And you know what's interesting is we're the only ones with insomnia too. No other species has insomnia. So the reason sleep is so important is it's nature's garbage truck. And it helps clear the debris that accumulates not only throughout our body, but especially in the brain. So sleep is highly correlated with reducing cognitive decline, lack of sleep. But there are many, many papers in terms of how it affects cellular aging. I've cited a couple. A Key Defense Against Oxidative Stress, 2023 paper, and sleep deprivation is linked to increased inflammatory markers. Now, sometimes I get the question, wow, how about naps? Are naps good? Well, naps are great. You know, they can restore energy and creativity. They can make us feel a lot better. But you know what? The garbage truck only comes at night. So for sleep to really do its magic, you need to get a good night's sleep. And how much is that? So then the National Sleep Foundation, plus the CDC, National Institutes of Health, Mayo Clinic all give these guidelines. And these guidelines have been revised in the last 9 years for older adults. So older adults, 65 and older, don't need quite as much sleep as younger adults, but they still need a pretty significant amount, 7 to 8 hours. And usually when I give this talk, somebody says, well, I don't need that much. And it's possible. There is something called the sleepless elite. It's an anomaly of the DEC2 gene, so it's a genetic mutation. The sleepless elite can survive fine on 5 or 6 hours of sleep a night. But the challenge is that it's a very, very small percent of the world's population. Depending on what paper you read, it's 1 to 5%. And you're more likely to be struck by lightning than to be one of the sleepless elite. So what I advise people is sleep is important. Make it a priority. Going to bed and getting up at the same time appears to be almost as important as how long you sleep. This was a study that was done with about 50,000 people in the UK, and it talked about the importance of sleep regularity. So I think a lot of us, especially if you're still in the workforce, you may be a short sleeper during the week and then try to make it up on weekends. While it feels good to sleep in, one of the best things you can do for yourself is to get on a consistent schedule. We miss the end of many movies in our house because I go like 10 o'clock, I've got to go to bed. We'll watch it the next day. So make sleep a priority and the regularity, but then you might be saying, well, what if you can't sleep? So Heidi, I have a whole talk on insomnia, but I'm going to give a couple of experiments here, 3 experiments for people who can't sleep. So we'll talk about that a little bit tonight. So the first thing you have to do if you can't sleep is you have to address the stress in your life. If you have chronic stress, and it seems like we had a lot of that, then you need to address that because stress dysregulates sleep. If you take a look here, this green curve is my normal sleep curve. Remember I said cortisol is a stress hormone? Well, cortisol also wakes us up in the morning. If you didn't have a little cortisol going through your bloodstream, you wouldn't wake up. But notice here, notice this irregular curve. This is what happens under chronic stress. And under chronic stress, the cortisol level is high. It increases during the day. It's high at night when you should be going to sleep, and it's really low in the morning. So that's a challenge. That means that you're going to be, if you're continually stressed out, you're going to be more tired in the morning and you're going to be more awake at night. So addressing the stress is important. I talk about the unpower half hour. It used to be the unpower hour and nobody liked that, so a half hour. But a half hour where you separate whatever you've been doing during the day from when you get into bed and when you go to sleep. So it's not only your electronic gadgets, but it's any kind of overhead lights because those will wake you up. They act like daylight. And then some kind of calming wind down routine. You don't need all of this stuff, but brushing your teeth, washing your face, cream, that kind of thing, it can all be part of that routine. And then if you can't sleep, get up. Do something else for 30 minutes. Listen to music, read a book, preferably a book and not your iPad. It doesn't do you really any good to just toss and turn for more than 20 or 30 minutes. So those are a few experiments. Exercise. I saw people typing in the chat, my magic pill, and exercise works pretty much the same way. I'm not going to read the slide. It's a really busy slide, but this was from one of my professors of gerontology. And she helped us understand in this one class all the different benefits of physical activity. So just take a look at that, the mental and physical benefits of exercise. But here are some studies that support it, especially with respect to cellular aging. So this was a 2008 study, 2,400 identical twin volunteers, 1,200 pairs. And they studied them for a period of about 7 years. And so they completed questionnaires related to their regular physical activity, smoking, socioeconomic status, and then they measured their telomeres from white blood cells. And then they looked at the results and adjusted the data for just what we would call other confounders like age, BMI, etc. And what this study found was pretty remarkable. is that twins, identical twins with regular recreational exercise, were actually 9 years younger biologically. The other thing that regular exercise, regular moderate exercise will do is it improves immunosurveillance. That means that those white blood cells are kind of looking better. They're more able to look for injury or viruses or other pathogens. So they're able to detect those. And moderate exercise will reduce chronic inflammation. The one thing I share is that there's a paradox of exercise and oxidative stress. So some physical activity, moderate exercise, is really good for us. For people who are, and I don't know if it's anyone in this group, like super runners, marathon runners, excessive exercise, and this is very individual, but it will increase oxidative stress. So I'm just saying that moderate exercise is good, but excessive exercise isn't necessary. And these are the recommendations of the American Heart Association in terms of what we need. So moderate intensity exercise, that's 5 times 30 minutes at a time, but it could be little bursts. It could be 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. And strength training and balance are important, but you can combine these. So, a lot of dance classes are cardio, but you're also balancing. You can do strength training with squats or lunges where it's also balance. So here are 2 experiments to try. I call one plus 15 because if you don't exercise at all, just finding 15 minutes of time to move more during your day is one of the most powerful things you can do. The other one I call mix it up. So if you're already doing a lot of, let's say, walking, maybe you add strength training. Maybe you add yoga. Maybe you do something different. Okay, I want to make sure I cover this and then I'm going to open this up for questions. So remember I said that a missing piece from this presentation was attitude. And this is based on research. We have 2 decades of research by Becca Levy. She's out of Yale. She wrote Breaking the Age Code. This was recently published, but her decade goes back for decades to the early 2000s. And what she showed by analyzing data from a very long-running longitudinal study in Ohio was that positive age beliefs impact longevity more than many healthy behaviors. So take a look at this. If we feel positive about the aging process, it can add, at least in this study, it added 7.5 years of longevity compared to, some of these other things that all played a role, like, yes, it's important to lower cholesterol and blood sugar, but look at the added benefit of positive age beliefs. And people not only lived longer, but they lived better. They had better physical health, they had better mental health, and they were more likely to engage in health behaviors. So all of these are probably interrelated, but again, people with positive attitudes about aging were more likely to exercise or eat healthy or be socially engaged. So I have one experiment here to try, and I call it Find Something to Celebrate, because having a positive attitude about aging is starting with having a positive attitude, like kind of no matter how sucky the day is. So I call it Find Something to Celebrate. Ideally, you do this with another person, or you could journal it, but you could text somebody. At the end of the day, write down or share something good about the day. So to conclude, I said that many factors contribute to aging, cellular aging. Lifestyle choices and attitudes about aging can slow down the process. Now, there can be a gap between what we know and what we do. So what I am going to do here is I'm going to leave this slide up and I'm going to ask you to maybe to type in the chat. Is there one of these that you might like to try? Oh, I'm breaking up. Can you hear me now?
I think, yeah, I was just responding. I think it's okay now. Yeah, all
Okay.
good. And you weren't breaking up on my end, Sally.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I do have a cold. I'm getting a cold. I do another talk on the immune system. So sorry about that. Okay. Um, so anyone want to type in an experiment they might want to try? And then I'll go to questions. I see one question about wine, which is a good one. If if there's one of these experiments that you think you might try, just type the number into the chat. That would make me think, oh wow, somebody was listening and they might try something. Um, Somebody said 9. If you can't sleep, get up. The unpower half hour. I love that one. Yeah, that's a good one too. Somebody asked me about wine. Well, wine has fallen out of favor. I know the Mediterranean diet initially emphasized it, but wine was incorporated into the lifestyle of the Mediterranean people who were very social, who had meals with everyone, who were very actively physically engaged. And in 2023, the World Health Organization came out and said really no amount of alcohol is good. So I do a lot of research on brain health, and I can tell you that in the studies that have been done since 2000, we're seeing that even moderate consumption of alcohol actually shrinks brain volume. So that's a challenge. Um, I would say my advice on drinking is if you don't drink, don't start. If you drink, moderate, and see where you might be able to cut back. Because again, according to the World Health Organization and the CDC, it does pose a health risk. And thank you. I see people are actually signing up for like signing up. They're actually taking these experiments seriously and identifying ones that they might try. Um,
One question that came in about
yeah.
sleep is reading in bed before you go to sleep. Okay.
I think that reading in bed before you go to sleep is okay if you can sleep. In other words, does it make you sleepy and help you sleep, or does it keep you awake? I think it's a real treat. I rarely get to do it. And I would choose a book over an iPad. So I would try, if you're reading in bed, to not use something that's backlit. Any other questions? Type them in the chat for us.
So, Sally, I have one question. I know that you
Sure.
talked about engaging more, being sort of an outcome of like all these good things that you're talking about. But what about can being socially connected foster better aging? Like, can it go the other way too? Because I feel like when I'm more connected to people, I feel better and my mindset changes, and I just feel like that might have a great outcome on aging as
Heidi,
well.
social engagement is so important. There's actually 6 pillars of health, and we don't have time to cover all of them. Interestingly enough, wine and substance is one, and social engagement is one. Social engagement is extraordinarily important for mental health, and it's also, again, remember, I do brain health research. Social engagement is extraordinarily helpful for reducing the risk of cognitive decline. Studies by at Johns Hopkins University shows that it can reduce the risk of cognitive decline by as much as 39%.
Mark was asking about a Kindle and if that's okay in terms of reading before bed.
So here's the thing. I don't know how much blue light a Kindle has versus an iPad. It's kind of less seductive because you're not going to shop the internet. You're going to just read your book. If you can enjoy your Kindle at night before bed and you have no trouble sleeping, keep doing it. We don't really know if it's like kind of disrupting your sleep, but if you're not aware of it, then that's fine. But if you have trouble sleeping, then take that out of the equation for a week or two and see what happens.
Any other questions? I can tell you that the JCC has lots of exercise classes. We have yoga, we have meditation, we have a track, we have lots of options for people.
And you have social and the JCC also allows people to be socially engaged. So it's really a twofer with that.
Sure. Well, I don't see any more questions. I just wanted to remind people that I am going to be sending out Sally's handout, and we'll also be posting the link to this recording on our wellness page on our website. Also, Sally, on our website, on the wellness page, we have information about your next Wellness Wednesday on when you're digging deeper into chronic inflammation. Do you want to mention that?
Yeah, so it's a somewhat similar talk to this one, but I'm going to do a deep dive into chronic inflammation, and we're going to get more into the specific foods that are inflammatory and not, because there's a lot of urban legend about that.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Sally.
It was
such a pleasure.
Thank you so much, and I love how engaged our audience was. So thank you, and have a wonderful evening, everyone.